Today I'm wanting to start a new series. It's going to be a 5-part series. And it's going to be a discussion that I'm responding to an online scholarly critique of the BEMA Podcast. And I can remember as just over a year ago, I was on the road and I woke up that morning and I had I had 18 text messages. Almost all of them were about the same thing. This blog post had just dropped and people were sending me links. A lot of them were fellow friends of mine that I would call scholars. They're far more scholars than I am. They're in academia. They might be professors. They might be PhD candidates and students. They might be whatever it is, or just involved in other teaching resource ministries. Anyway, people were sending me this link, and most of them had a very similar message. It was like, hey, you need to know that this just dropped. I'm thinking of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't be discouraged by this. And a lot of them added, we know Laura. The blog post was written by a scholar who at least did part of her education at Duke. Her name is Dr. Laura Robinson. And a lot of them were saying, listen, I know Laura really well. I know Dr. Robinson well. We've worked together at things like SBL, which is the Society of Biblical Literature, one of the annual academic forums that people get together for. I've never attended an SBL. It's a rabbit hole that once I start to dive down, I'm going to want to dive all the way down, and I've never gone. Just it's better for my schedule and my ministry if I don't start to jump down that rabbit hole. But all these other friends had, and they know Laura well. They were either colleagues or friends or acquaintances or follow her stuff, and they say she's great. Sometimes her posts, her substack can come off as very critical, but she's really a great person. And I took their word for it, jumped online and read what really was a very generous critique of our podcast and what we do. It was offered, I believe, in good faith. And it was just, in a lot of ways, it was beautiful. It was very hard to read. It poked at all of my insecurities to this day. It's actually been a lot of emotional work for me to prepare to do this series on YouTube. I need to be in a really good space so that I don't act out of my insecurities, but I can act with a level head about the post. That makes it sound worse than it was. I just said it was a super generous critique. I prayed about it. I wrote my own comment and the comment threads to the blog post, and was able to connect very quickly with Dr. Laura, Dr. Robinson. And she has been fantastic. She is everything that my friends said that she would be on a personal level, and more. I want to say that very clearly. We started interacting quite a lot at the beginning. There was probably 4 or 6 weeks there where we were talking a couple times a week, just kind of going back and forth about who she studies with and who her teachers and influencers have been and mine, and what is your opinion on this, and how do you see that, and why do you take this, and just a very cordial. She never talked down to me. She never, because we are not peers. She is not my equal. She is my superior in academia. She is ahead of me. She is not next to me. I'm well aware of that. And never at any point did she talk down to me. I've learned a lot from her in those personal correspondences. And I've become a better person because of her critique. Here's what I'm trying to say. This is how critique should work. In academia, they call it peer review. In fact, the funny irony is that Dr. Laura Robinson's Substack, the title of her Substack is not peer reviewed, which is kind of cheeky and tongue-in-cheek, because it's her own non-peer reviewed. In academia, you can't publish something without it being reviewed by a jury of your academic peers. Like, they're going to chip in and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is why that person should take this. That the whole thing of peer review is what holds us academically accountable. When BEMA started, I'm in the middle of my graduate study right now, and I'm more on the front half than I am on the back half of my graduate study. Until just a couple years ago, I had no graduate training. I was not an academic. I have not had to submit myself to peer review. And to be honest, I've been surprised that stuff like this hasn't happened far more than it does. And so I received this, hopefully, with just as much good faith and graciousness as she offered it. So I just wanted to set this up. This series that I'm doing is going to respond 5 parts to her post. She has an introduction. She has 3 points that she takes issue with as examples of what's wrong with our podcast, or the dangers of our podcast. She has 3 examples, and then a conclusion. And I want to do the intro today, point 1, point 2, point 3, and then I'll deal with the conclusion in a conclusion video. This is not, I wanted to start just by setting the stage. We won't cover a whole lot today. I just wanted to give you the backstory so that you know this is not me clapping back at a critique. I know that it's very sexy today to get online and this person says this and then this person. And the thing that we do is we craft some witty comeback and then we respond to the person who's coming at us. That's not what this is. This is not me defending myself. This is me receiving and engaging. There's a good faith engagement that should take place between people, teachers, influencers, anybody close to academia, in academia. We should be made better by these interactions. I have been made better because without people like a Dr. Laura Robinson writing these things, I start to take things for granted. I start to cut corners. I start to say things a little bit too heavy-handedly. I start to, you know what I mean? It's these interactions that keep us honest. It's these interactions that hopefully keep us humble. It's these interactions that help us help one another steward the work that we do. So I want to be really clear. There are some things that Dr. Laura Robinson says that she's right about. And she's just right about them. There are some things that she says that I think I just disagree. I would say she's wrong about. Maybe there are some things that are misrepresented or misunderstood. I actually wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to have a few Zoom calls with Dr. Laura to talk about this series, almost like a journalist. I wanted to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to do this part, and you say this. Do you mean this? I just wanted to make sure that what I was doing was representing her and what she was saying fairly. And our conversations have kind of died off over time. Things happen. You can't maintain all these relationships with people. I know that more than anybody else. I'm not faulting her for that. She always said she wanted to set up some Zoom calls. We never got the opportunity to, at least to this point. Maybe we will in the future. She said she wanted to set those things up. We just haven't been able to find the time. She's gotten busy and is responding less and less and less these days. It's neither here nor there. It's life. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I know what that's like. But I did want to respond, because responding is what keeps the conversation alive. And we don't have to. We don't have to respond to this. People can think what they want to think. Not everybody's going to love the BEMA Podcast. But I think dealing with it not only makes me better, but all of us that learn from the same world, the same worldview, the same hermeneutic, and this same school of scholarship, it's helpful for us to process some of these pushbacks and know where to put it, because we'll end up running into it. We will go to SBL and we'll run into a perspective that's completely writes off what we thought was academically solid. What do you do with that? And so to process some of that, that's what I want to look at. So I just want to deal with her introduction section and just see what comes out of it. I'm not going to read every line, but I am going to put a link to this in her blog post in the description to all these videos so it's easy to access. Any link that I do talk about will be in the description of the podcast. I'm going to talk about multiple links. I'll put it all in the description of this video, okay? But I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to reframe it. You can go read all of these things word for word. There's just some details that I'm not going to take time to read or go over. But we're not trying to hide anything. I got nothing nothing to hide in this blog post. So anyway, Dr. Laura says that over the weekend she was diving into some historical claims about Caesarea Philippi that seemed to circulate in Christian media, particularly those associated with Israel tourism. After investigating, I wasn't able to substantiate most of the claims I'd heard, and I was able to trace some of those claims back to Ray Vander Laan. Obviously, you all know Ray was one of my main teachers, one of my main mentors, founder of That the World May Know and a lecturer and tour guide on biblical history. That led to a lot of people reaching out to me with media they had heard as being a reliable source of biblical history. A lot of the requests centered on media that cited Ray Vander Laan. But one that really caught my eye was the BEMA Podcast. So this is where she runs into us. Because I've taught that lesson. A lot of you know the lesson she's talking about, the gates of hell, Caesarea Philippi. That came directly from Ray Vander Laan. Now, she has a whole series of posts that she did on her blog, on her Substack, talking about that. I think she's dead wrong about that, by the way. I understand her critique. I think it's a fair critique. But she seems to insinuate that Ray essentially kind of makes this up out of nowhere. I don't want to misrepresent with that. That's kind of the vibe I get, is that she traces these back to Ray Vander Laan. He's almost the origin of these. She can't find it. She can't validate it anywhere. I sent her in our correspondence just a link that I had run into recently. And if you're not looking in the places that I'm looking, you wouldn't run into it. And what I'm looking at is not university scholarly databases. It's not where I spend my time. So I had the video from the team that does the dig at Caesarea Philippi. Like the team doing the dig. Now, please don't misunderstand me. The team doing the dig is not the peer-reviewed scholarship that will be respected later on in the conversation. But the team at the Caesarea Philippi dig supports, it's there. They don't get those ideas from Ray Vander Laan. Ray Vander Laan's getting those ideas from the folks that are doing the digs there. It's those, like the pictures on the archaeological site at the tourism sites. Again, please don't mishear me. That's not academic citable, but there's this narrative that like Ray kind of comes up with this stuff. No, the archaeological team that does the dig poses these ideas. A lot of Ray's material, he was often connected to the digs. He's reading the dig reports. He's connected, a lot of his stuff from Turkey. He knew the German teams. He was connected to the German teams that were doing the digs on those sites. That's where he's getting a lot of those ideas. When Ray was going to school decades ago, he was bumping into people like Yossi Garfinkel, who's doing the literal digs at places like Sha'araim in, I'm gonna blank on what the actual site is called culturally. But anyway, he's bumping into those people doing those digs. Those are the conversations that are shaping him. Those dig experts, the people that are in charge of those sites and those words are failing me now that I'm doing this YouTube video. But like Yossi is in charge of, originally in charge of that original dig effort there at Sha'araim. He's going to be connected with Hebrew U, where Ray is learning. So he's connected to the academic conversation, not that ends up being peer-reviewed later, but these things are rooted in like real work, real archaeology, real dig reports. Like real, and then the academics have to take those dig reports. They have to sift through what they think is appropriate, and the whole academic community kind of comes down on what they actually think is right or wrong or true. That's the whole process of accountability and peer review. Anyway, I'm not even through the first paragraph, but I think she's dead wrong about the Caesarea Philippi stuff. And I don't have the academic citations where all the scholars agree this is the case and this is what academia says. But I can link to sources where that conversation is linked to something beyond Ray Vander Laan, to the folks that are digging in the dirt. I mean, that team was doing an active dig. Some of their craziest finds at Caesarea Philippi have further supported Ray's positions and happened during COVID. 2020, 2021 was when those digs took place, and they gave a lecture online about what they were finding at that site. So it's not just fringe fantasy that Ray's making up because he likes how the narrative works. I'll put it that way. It still may not pass the bar for somebody like Dr. Robinson for peer-reviewed, vetted, this is what scholarship thinks. But that doesn't mean that the only other option is that we're making it up out of nowhere. I wasn't able to confirm what kind of circulation the BEMA podcast has, but I did hear from a few people that their pastors actively preached from and recommended the podcast. Our podcast has a decent reach. We're usually in the top 30, sometimes break into the top 20 on Apple Podcasts for religious Christian podcasts. We have I'm just trying to answer the question of circulation. We have about 140 to 160 subscribers between Spotify and iTunes. That's just 2 platforms, so who knows? Who knows how many people are actually listening to the podcast? We'll have anywhere from, depending on the week, we have anywhere from 20 to 60,000 downloads of any given episode over the course of a week. We're not pulling Bible Project numbers. We're not a top 10 podcast, but yeah, she wasn't able to find circulation, confirm what kind of circulation. We have a substantial place. We're not just here's why I'm saying that. We're not just going to say like we're a nobody. We understand that we have a platform and a voice, and we need to be really careful how we steward that at the BEMA Podcast. It's the podcast arm of Impact Campus Ministries, which isn't pulling Navigator's numbers, not even a little, by the way, but still appears at a number of universities in my state. I think she may be confusing BEMA discussion groups with Impact Campus Ministry teams. Discussion groups, we don't run them. All we do is have a map with pins. We facilitate connections, but we don't run any of those groups. So we don't have multiple teams in her state. We have 12 teams. You can go online and see our teams on the website. We have 12 teams around the country. A handful of them are in Pennsylvania. Unless she's in Pennsylvania and I don't know it. She may be looking at BEMA discussion groups, which may or may not represent who we are and what we do because we don't run them. Let's see here. Anytime you have media getting preached to church audiences, I think we have a responsibility that any historical claims are the best they can be and the best they can source. Absolutely. Could not agree more. This can be tough, and as near as I can tell, no one on the Impact or BEMA podcast team really has extensive training in history. That is absolutely fair. On an academic level, I'm getting, that's not, I don't know if that is fair. L. Grover Fricks has a master's degree, studied at Hebrew University. She had to take quite a bit of classes in biblical history, biblical studies, the land of the Bible. She's the most educated of any of us team members, L. Grover Fricks is. I'm in the middle of my graduate study right now. It's a master's in theology, so it's not going to be directly relevant to the work of history. She's completely correct in that. But we've also been very honest about that. We've been very clear about that. We're wanting to share. We like to take what we've learned and creatively package it and share it with the world. But the work of citation, the work of sourcing, the work of academic study and research needs to be done by somebody else other than us because we are not the experts. And we have never wanted to pose ourselves as the experts. We have learned from, we try to learn from the experts, but we are not the experts. And we've worked very hard to make sure we're clear about that. So she's absolutely right, but I don't believe at all that we've posed ourselves to be such. You don't need a doctorate to write good history. Thank you, I agree. My husband has an MDiv and he's an excellent historian. People can learn without getting a degree, but learning history and telling the good from the bad is tricky business. Training really does help. I totally agree. And we've tried to always steward that space very well. We want to connect people to the sources, not be the source. That's going to come up later. She's going to say we don't cite our sources enough. And I'm going to say yes, but no. But more on that later in the series. I'm noticing some similar trends in BEMA to the same problems that seem to dog that the world may know in Ray Vanderlaan. I would assume so. Ray was my teacher. So whatever you see is true about Ray is absolutely probably going to be true about me. It's what shaped me and influenced me. I almost take that as a compliment. She doesn't mean it that way, and I don't take it completely as a compliment, but I would say yes, absolutely. I'm going to be shaped by that. I also understand what she's saying, and I'm not arguing with there are some dangers. We're gonna get into some of those over the course of this series. I'm going to front load this review with what I hope is a warm declaration of sentiments and a friendly offer. I didn't feel particularly inspired to give a gentle hand to other people that she's critiqued, and maybe we'll get a chance at some point. I'm pressed for time. Maybe we'll get a chance at some point in this series to talk about some of the other critiques she's given, because her other critiques will not be as gentle and as generous and as gracious on her blog. She offered us very good faith interaction. She was very generous and kind with a very direct critique of our podcast. I just can't say that enough. And I appreciate that, and I thank her. I thank her for that, because I recognize it. I hope my response is the exact same spirit of generosity and yes. Didn't feel the same, but she didn't feel the same need to be as harsh on BEMA. As far as I'm concerned, we play on the same team. Yes. And I think our interactions since, I believe Dr. Laura would say the same thing. Our interactions since have only heightened that conviction. We're not on different teams. We're gonna come from different camps academically. We're gonna look at different fields of scholarship differently. But we're on the same team. We both have a passion for good biblical history. We're generally going to be looking at and talking about the same stuff. I don't have a problem with, I understand where she's coming from. Don't have a problem with her perspective, her ministry, the way she packages is excellent. Her work is excellent. I understand the critiques she has of what we're doing. I'm okay with that. We're on the same team. My goal is not to go to war with the BEMA Podcast. Excellent. I do not want to be unkind or condescending about this. I've never felt like she is. If anyone from the BEMA Podcast is reading this, here I am. Please let me say this as clearly as possible. I love your interest in history. I love your passion for this subject. After listening to your show, I came to believe you are intelligent, capable people and are motivated by a sincere desire to learn and grow, as well as to equip pastors and others with historical knowledge. I was consistently impressed by your humility, kindness, and commitment to resisting oppressive readings of the Bible on your show. When I say I heard errors in the show, my aim is not for you to stop the show, but to help you improve it. I want to help you, not tear you down. And at the end of that paragraph, let me say directly into the camera, should Dr. Laura ever see this, and I don't know if she ever will, that paragraph meant more to me than you could possibly know. I was probably able to read the rest of the post. That paragraph helped me combat my own insecurities, because on the other end of this blog post are people like me and the BEMA Podcast team who do love history. And acknowledging that and was big. And I thank you. I thank you for that. That meant a lot to me and enabled me to engage this work all the more. She says, if you leave a comment in the replies or message me at blah, 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 I will send you my personal email address and we can talk. We did end up talking. I already shared that. On Marty Solomon's early blog post about sources, she's referencing, I haven't been on my blog in years, guys. She's referencing a blog post that I posted late 2013. That is almost 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I wrote a blog post about my sources. Now, to her credit, I didn't put a date on that post, so she doesn't know how long that post has been out. The Marty Solomon of 12 years ago, that was 3 years before we ever started the BEMA Podcast. I mean, I've grown a lot in 12 years. I've learned a lot. I've read a lot. I've changed a lot. I've adjusted a lot of things that I've gotten wrong in 12 years. I know I'm getting stuff wrong. And I know I'm not a scholar. But she's quoting a blog post from a long, long time ago. We'll talk more about this later. He mentioned the financial difficulty of accessing academic sources. This is a serious problem for scholars who don't have university credentials, and I'd love to help you overcome. If there's an academic article you want to access and you can't find it, I can get it through her institutional. She's offering to give us help. I can get over those paywalls because of who she is as a scholar, and she wants to help us. And again, good faith, generous, gracious, kind. Thank you. And she's been that in all of our personal interactions. Dr. Robinson has been that for me and for us. And I'm grateful for it. Totally. I believe in the importance of lay Christians and pastors being able to access the tools of scholarship. If you want access to good historical scholarship, you should have it. I speak from a place of incredible privilege, and I was able to spend much of my life in full-time academic spaces. And it's neither just nor right that I should keep the spoils for myself. I want to share. That's what we want to do. We actually want to work in tandem. BEMA has always wanted to join hands with people like Dr. Robinson to keep funneling that information. She's in the academic library. Coincidentally, I happen to be there now too. I have access now because I'm in grad work. I have access beyond all those paywalls. I can get into all those articles now that I couldn't get into a decade ago, right? But we have that. We are on the same team, and she's ahead of me. Again, she is not my equal. She is my academic superior. I want to work with people like Dr. Robinson to feed that information out into the world. So I appreciate her wanting to help. I'm going to break down what I see as 3 issues with the podcast that I believe are generally representative of a lot of pop history, and use an example from the show each time. So let's get into it. We'll go into her 3 points in the next 3 videos of this series. She makes a couple references throughout the post to pop history, pop historians, popular historians, and she doesn't mean it as this mean dig. When I first heard it, I was like, ooh, zing, right? But it's accurate. It's an accurate reference. It's what I do. It's what I do. Because I'm not a true scholar. I'm not peer-reviewed. And I'm trying to study the ones who are. I'm trying to study the experts and then give them away to the world, right? That's the work that I'm trying to do, take and give away. I am using scholarship to help facilitate the platform that educates other people, right? At the end of this series, I'm going to suggest that my critique I would offer in her direction is she does the opposite. Both of them have great benefits, and both of them have dangers, right? She takes her scholarship and then turns it into somewhat, we'll talk more about that later. But I definitely am using scholarship through a platform to facilitate it to other people. And I have to constantly be reminded and remember I am not the scholar. And I may not even always do a great job of relaying that information well and accurately. I think Laura's pointing out some of those things. Dr. Robinson is pointing out some of those things, and I completely respect that and understand it. Now, I think we need a little bit more credit than maybe given in some of these points, and that's why we're going to dive into some of these issues, just so we can learn a little bit about what's taking place. But, all in all, she called it a friendly critique of the BEMA Podcast, and I want to offer a friendly, just as friendly and thankful, response to Dr. Robinson's critique. How about that? So, that's the setup to the series. You can find the link to the blog post there in the description. I'll probably throw a link in there we'll get to some of that stuff later. Anyway, we'll set up the series. We'll spend some more time talking about some of these issues, and we'll see how the series goes. But I'm appreciative of her critique. I'm appreciative of the spirit with which she gave it. I'm appreciative of how our interaction have gone. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. And I'm better because of this conversation. I hope that we all can be by the time we're done.